In this programme, we're going to explore new ways to produce visual material for the whiteboard for secondary science. Teachers TV was approached by Steve Lowe, a designer and film director, who had some ideas about designing visual material for the whiteboard.
Hello, my name is Steve Lowe. I direct and produce visual material for TV. I have worked in many areas in the world of TV. Here's a few examples of my work.
Steve feels the whiteboard is an exciting piece of technology that has enormous potential as a communication tool. Will Steve be able to translate some of his visual skills into a classroom environment? How will Steve cope with a considerably smaller filming budget? What will the outcome be if a teacher and an image maker collaborate? This programme is about Steve's collaboration with Roberto Perini at the Queen's Park Community School in London. Roberto chose magnetism as our subject.
I organised a production schedule that had 2 filming sessions with Roberto.
On the first filming day, he gathered 2 different types of film material. The first style was a performance, as if to a classroom of students. The second style was a direct-to-camera performance that would sum up key information explained in the lesson. Steve produced a wide range of graphics, mixing 2D and 3D animation styles. He showed these graphics and animations to Roberto.
And it is.
Okay, Aiton, good morning. Today, what we're going to look at... Okay, just have a look, everybody.
That looks better, doesn't it?
Now,
all we're playing around with here is what you can do. Now, I could make you look really gorgeous and glamorous and graphic.
But not only magnetism,
but
something called electromagnetism.
Key bits of time.
Okay?
Yeah, this looks good, yeah.
Who can give me 3 facts about magnetism?
You noticed also how sort of sexy you look there.
Okay, that's good. It's
No, I don't care, but let's just listen to what I say here, because this is brilliant at the start, as the start of it.
Static, magnetism, okay, and gravity. Now,
Before I worked on the clip, I was very concerned. I thought it wouldn't be a very not any reflection on the people I was working with, but I was my main concern that it wouldn't be done properly and it wouldn't be professionally prepared, and that was my main concern. But all of those concerns flew out the window after the first shoot and after seeing the first few clips, because the graphics were great. Yeah.
Okay, and then these are just running bits of graphics.
That's fantastic.
That we just... Now, we didn't make it too complicated, but we went inside stuff and we played around with... Then say that it's the spin of the electron that make... so these are bits and pieces that...
It's looking good there, isn't it, really?
Now, and this thing, we then did something else about it, and saying that because it's based in a sort of crystalline structure, the domains swing easier, whatever. And these are just little bits and pieces that we've done. Do you get an overall? I mean, do you think these things work?
I think the first one worked when you had that last one with the picture, but I think what we need to do really, I think we've gone into enough detail. We sort of about like the domains. I think we need to sort of try and come back and try and just put it a bit more looking straight at the camera, but really simple, because otherwise they're just going to get lost. They're not going to learn anything from what we've set out to do on the program or on the CD. These lessons are going to be on magnets and electromagnets. What it's done for me is really open my eyes to see what could be done or can be done with someone with the expertise of Steve. And if I was to give him some other ideas, the process of him putting them on the screen really could help in my teaching. And it's something I've been lucky enough to do. So I've actually given him some ideas. He's put them on graphics. I've told him to go away, change them. And for other topics, it would be great, not only in science, but in other lessons where students have to picture ideas or concepts.
At this stage of the production, Steve and Roberto limited themselves to 3 visual elements. 1, live action of a teacher in a classroom. 2, typographical material that focuses on key points. 3, graphics and animation that illustrate key points or ideas. Teachers have extremely busy schedules, but visual material can be produced for the whiteboard with a minimal impact on teachers' time. This process will be continually open to teachers suggesting changes and asking for additional material to be produced.
We didn't do much on electromagnetism, but this is one little look of going inside it and seeing how the electrons are moving. Yeah. But we concentrated more on the magnetism end and said that can... Now, obviously, you could put...
Would this have a narrative to it?
Yeah.
The design team thought that producing some of the visual sequences without sound would allow teachers to add their own commentary in the classroom. Individual teachers' ideas could then be shared more easily with their colleagues. This should encourage collaboration with teachers in individual subjects. This is how Roberto incorporated the visual material into his lesson on magnetism.
I've been working on some clips for the last about 3 months, okay, to do with magnetism. But without you lot in the clips, it's not going to be very good. It's going to be a little bit rubbish, okay? So I really need you to look at these. So, 8:10, today what we're going to look at, okay? Any guesses what we're going to look at? Have a look at this. Okay, magnets. So we're going to look at magnetism and electromagnetism. Now, what is magnetism? Okay, so, what is magnetism? One person put your hand up. Any idea? Alright, it's a force. Okay, so good, it's a force. Okay, now, so just follow on with this. Okay, good, it's a force. Okay, it's a special type of force, a non-contact force. So we've looked at other ones last year. So what other non-contact forces do you know? Yeah, I mean, seeing myself on TV, and hopefully when, I don't know, maybe for a lot of the kids, you need to look, watching their reactions to the clip and watching myself, you realise how much slower you have to be with things. I think that's just, a lot of the time is because I've only been teaching for 2 years, you tend to try to rush through things, but I think if you just look and take a step back and look at the way you're teaching and then think, oh, if I go through things a lot more slowly, it would be fine. The problem is you could lose your enthusiasm and then you're going back on yourself. So I wouldn't want to go through things slowly and not have the enthusiasm. But it's a balance that hopefully in a few years will pan out, and that'll be a benefit really for everybody.
The way the images explained it made it a lot clearer.
So the images, how did they do that, Ria? Can you just tell me a bit
They
more?
explained it in more detail and it was easier to see it than hear it.
That's the main thing that, if you shut your eyes, stands out.
The graphics.
The graphics? So what about the graphics do you like?
We were talking about the different parts of like the topic. It was easier to understand it with when it had, one of them was 3D and the other one was kind of 2D. It was easier to understand it with what you were saying.
Other forces that you know, Lucas?
Gravity.
Gravity. What else? Friction.
Static.
Static.
Upthrust.
Upthrust. Good. All right. So they're the ones that we've looked at here before. What were they? Good. Yeah, I mean, I use a lot of the interactive whiteboard, but the key thing is really to complement it with work and worksheets or activities, because otherwise it just becomes a video that they're watching. But the fact that it's small clips and we can pause those clips and ask questions around it was the key point, and get the kids to do activities. So it makes it more of a lesson than just sit and watch a video and daydream. It was actually quite tight in that you could put a clip on, and if this was to be extended, you could probably put a lesson plan with clip 1 to like a minute clip, questions, activity, and you could really break it down if the money was available into lesson plans and then schemes of work. So you could put this in, schemes of work, and it would complement. Let me just start off with any of you that know any types of magnetic material. Okay, so any types of magnetic material, who wants to be next? Okay, all right, Ahmed.
Iron.
Iron's one, Olivia.
Steel.
Steel, yeah.
Nickel.
Nickel, and there's one more.
Cobalt.
Cobalt. So there are 4, okay? If you was to think back, you can remember from before, that stands out.
When it was explaining the electromagnet.
So the electromagnet, so that was something that maybe before you didn't pick up. So what about the image was it that made it easy to understand?
It's the way it broke it down and explained it more.
Alright, so was there any colours that you found useful, or any certain pictures or motions of the pictures that you found very useful to?
Well, when it split it up, it had different colours.
Just tell me the one thing you've enjoyed the most about today's experience or today's work that you've done. What's the main one of the few things that you may have enjoyed?
Trying things out from what it said on the video and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially on the topic of magnetism. Before we made this production, the confidence was not there with, in teaching the topic of magnetism, but now I'm fully confident. If I could give out some magnets now, okay, if you lot just play about with the magnets, that might be a good shot.
Who is this mouse?
Didn't want to do it. That's a good shot.
okay? He came in and was filmed as well.
That's only a 7.
Just doing this, okay? It's called the elevator, okay?
So
And it
induction
works. You can tell me how it works. Any idea?
You lift it up
Have a
and
look
it still
here.
goes and there's nothing.
How you can tell me how this works? Have a look at the elevator.
Magnetism.
Wow!
But a more complex way of doing it. So just have a quick look.
Sorry,
So-
not 7. Induction.
So,
How does it
finish
go?
the clip and then I'll ask you how you think it's done.
Repelling.
It's repelling.
It is repellent. Good. Just say that again for the camera.
But how's it still going when he puts his hand there?
Alright, so
Because the magnet's strong enough to go through your hand.
yeah, because it's a force, isn't it? It can go through your
Yeah, the
hand.
force is strong.
Okay?
It's easy.
So look at the way it does now. Okay, as well. Okay? He gets a cup.
It's serious.
Yes, seriously.
So the repel is really strong,
Yeah.
so you can go through everything.
We showed the elevator, and I've got that elevator, and the problem with that is, and Alex, I spoke to my colleague, and he said to me, the problem with that is when you've got a class full of 30 kids, and you get it up there and it doesn't spin. But I said if you could show it and then have it on the board, it sort of relaxes you a bit to just have that up there and do it as well, and they can see that it's worked.
Okay, guys, question is, okay, this is all I want you to answer now. I want 2 people to answer, so I'm going to pick the best answer, okay? So come up with how, Milana, how you think, in as much scientific detail, the elevator works. So this thing on the board, okay, how do you think it works? One person, hand up. Alright, so I'll let Ria go.
The repulsion of
Alright, guys, you need to listen because of the mic. Ria.
the repulsion of the magnets are so strong that it allows it to float.
Okay, so there's a repulsion, okay, that's imbalance, and it allows it to float. Okay, good. Now, we're going to look back at magnetism. So if you was to look inside of this magnet, what would you see? Any idea? Okay, let me tell you, what you would see, okay, are these electric charges, okay, all pointing in exactly the same direction. Okay, that's what makes it a magnet. That's what gives it its force. Okay, just imagine these little arrows all pointing in one direction, one pointing north, one pointing south, all aligned in the same direction. And that's what is the difference between a magnetic material, okay, and a non-magnetic material. When I explained this before on the board with the pen, when I explained these arrows, what do you think of the thing that we've done here with it? What do you think that is done? Did you see the graphics, Sophia?
You can see it a lot clearer because it's on the board when you drew it, right? It's just like a giant mess of arrows, but there you can see all the different arrows pointing in the same
so I'm just
direction.
going to run it again because this was something I thought was a very difficult thing for you to understand. Really, this has been in time that's not been allocated to it. It's been in our own time. And if you was given this to do with the funding, then you could take it a manner of places. It's got interactivity, it's extension work, it's differentiation. I mean, you could really build that all into these sorts of clips.
I really like how the graphics really expressed the ideas and showed finer details of it and stuff. It really helped me visualize it myself because I visualize things to understand them, so yeah.
In this sequence, a small group of students stayed behind in break time to look at much more complicated ideas.
So, if we were to look inside of our magnet, okay, what we would see, okay, are tiny electrons spinning around, okay, a nucleus, a positive nucleus, and you have a negative electron spinning around that. But the electrons are not only spinning around the nucleus, they're spinning in another direction. So they're going around but spinning and spinning. And this is what's causing our magnetic dipole. And now it's confusing, but they're spinning, and the spinning electrons give you a magnetic force, okay, because it's a movement of electrons, okay, that can give us this magnetic force. It's linked, the link between the two. So if we can align these electrons all in the same direction, as in a magnetic material, okay, that's when we're going to get a magnetized material, when they're all pointing in the same direction.
Inside a material, there's these atoms, right? And then there's these things called electrons, which are orbiting around it. And these electrons are charged with electricity, and they have their own axis, which points in like a direction, right? So if you could get all these little axes to point in the same direction, then something becomes magnetic.
They picked it up because a lot of those students, I mean, a lot of the material we do in class, it limits how far you can go, especially in a mixed ability group. But I mean, if you could say to a kid, just have a look at the more advanced stuff tonight and then maybe summarize it in a paragraph. If you was the teacher, that would be something you could use, and then you're giving extension material for them higher attaining students. But as we can see, if you've got a higher ability group and they're in a class of 30, sometimes they try to oppress their opinions because they're afraid they might have it wrong. But when they're in that group and they had that freedom to discuss what they were seeing, it was just really their brains were ticking over and they were really thinking it through. And it's something that the clips can be used for, especially if they're on the internet. You can get them to go away, like we said. Do you think it would be a good idea to make it available? Would that be better than a book?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's different to look on the internet than it is to pick up a book and read it.
I was originally going to say that I did kind of wish that we had this type of information and stuff beforehand, because there were like all these like it was clearer because we could visualize it easier and stuff, so it would have been really helpful before the exams.
It was clear and easy to understand.
Do you think it might help, like, if your parents want to help you revise, if they can see it as well, they can see also the way that Roberto teaches the subject, do you think that might help as well?
Yeah, because if they knew how he was teaching, then they could help teach that to me at home.
Imagine in 2 months' time we have an end-of-year test and this is available. Would you consider using it then?
Yeah, if I was revising for something.
So if you was revising, what would you plug your headphones in and just try and, or would you read through it? What do you think you would do?
I think I would do both.
Do you think that the lesson today was different?
Yeah, it was more fun.
Why was it more fun?
Because there was more stuff to do.
And it's something that I'd recommend for other teachers to do, and then we could actually share our ideas on Teachers TV or on other projects. I mean, because that's really what it's about now. The London Group for Learning, we share resources, but if we could share it on Teachers TV, that would would be great.
Steve and Roberto feel that with the support of a small technical team, teachers could produce audiovisual material for the whiteboard in a style appropriate for their needs. Desktop technology now available to image makers has made it possible to produce extremely complex visual material at a fraction of the cost of even 5 years ago.
The everyday laptop is now a platform that will support very complicated film and image making.
Steve thought the internet would be the ideal medium to show and develop this educational resource, and that Teachers TV would be the perfect host for this visual material.
I thought it was a great project to work on, and I've been impressed with the graphics. Obviously, if we could expand it, I'd want to make it a lot more interactive and maybe even get some computer programmers in to make some games, and for them to have some printed text available for them to actually revise from that. Now I've got a solid copy that I can use year after year on magnetism, so it's going to make my life a lot easier when I come to teach magnetism, because I'm going to have that there to use, that hard copy. I can cut and paste bits out of it and really try and build on that. So we've started here and we've done a production, but if we could build on the idea, and then it could turn into parents looking at the clips to help their children with their revision, kids revising differentiated material, but it could really open a doorway if it was allowed to and if the funding was there. If this was done with more teachers, then imagine how many ideas we would have.